Now, follow up on our report yesterday about all those Australians trapped overseas by these stupid limits on being allowing people to come back. 23,000 Australians are trying to come back, stuck overseas, some for months. Well, the Morrison government said today it would try to lift the cap on returning Australians from 4,000 a week to 6,000.
Let's get more Australians home. 4,000 returning at the moment. We want to make that 6. We want to make that 8. We want to make that 10. We want to increasingly, exponentially available so that more Australians can come home and be home with their loved ones by Christmas.
Well, good, but I just wonder why there's any bans at all, any cap at all, and I also have to say the Morrison government is not actually forcing anything, not creating any more quarantine hotels itself. It's just saying, yeah, come on, premiers, you do it. The premiers didn't seem to be rushing today to help out.
And I've agreed on the basis that the other states double what they're currently taking.
I think it's imperative that we get back to Australia as many Australians as we possibly can.
I don't really like the fact that this has been sprung via a press conference without a discussion with the people actually required to implement it. And I would have thought that is very directly outside the spirit of the National Cabinet.
As for Victoria, it says it's not taking a single returnee, not one Australian from overseas. It can't even trust itself to run quarantine hotels anymore. So Australians overseas, I'm afraid they are waiting and waiting to be allowed back home. And the rest of us, we have to beg for permission to leave our own country. Isn't that incredible? Joining me is Rita Pani, Sky News presenter and Herald Sun columnist, and Daniel Wild, Director of Research at the Institute of Public Affairs. Daniel, what do you make of this?
Well, Andrew, to me, it's not so much the rules themselves, as bad as they are, but as you just touched on, the inconsistent application of those rules and the hypocritical double standards that have been a feature of this entire lockdown period since March. We know if you're a celebrity like Shane Warne, you can have a special exemption to leave the country and go to England to commentate cricket. If you're a part of the AFL elite, you're allowed to traverse state borders and get into Queensland. If you're a celebrity like Hugh Jackman, you get the same treatment. But if you're a mainstream Australian who wants to cross state borders to see your family or to receive medical care, or indeed to go overseas to do the same, or to come back to visit family and loved ones, you have an entirely different set of rules that apply to you. It's the elites versus the mainstream, and that has been the dichotomy throughout this entire lockdown period. And that was, of course, exemplified by the Black Lives Matter protests, where tens of thousands of protesters were given the explicit permission of police, of politicians and those in authority to break the law and to protest, whereas mainstream Australians weren't even allowed to go to work or visit their loved ones.
Well, you can't even go to church. How about that? Rita, I find it just so absurd. Queensland, right, it's got no crisis, right? It didn't even have one single new infections today. And it says, oh, at the moment it can't handle more than 500 people in a week coming back from overseas. Seriously?
It's utterly pathetic. We know they've got empty hotels sitting there. They've closed their borders, so obviously they don't have international tourists. They don't even have interstate tourists in there. They've got empty hotels, people out of work. Surely you'd be putting your hand up to take as many people as you can, not only to facilitate Australians returning home, which is, I think, something that is essential. If you're an Australian citizen, there should be no queues to get back into your own country, but also because I think it provides a benefit to the local economy. These people are now paying for their own quarantine. It's not like the taxpayer-funded benefit. It's a win-win on every level, unless you acknowledge that you're utterly incompetent, like in Victoria, and you're going to allow any virus infections to get out of the hotel setting.
Or unless you lack the courage of the Morrison government and actually build some, create some quarantine hotels yourself and do that. But anyway, Daniel, Rita was just talking about the losses that and the business that people actually need now that we've poleaxed the economy. In Victoria, small business owner Michelle Loilo is challenging in the Supreme Court the legality of Victoria's nighttime lockdown laws. Not just that either, apparently. She runs a cafe in the Mornington Peninsula and says curfews killed 99% of her business, so as to stay home directions. They say they violate her right to liberty. Now, the Supreme Court judge today said this case requires urgent hearings. He's not giving a verdict on this today about whether to shoot it up to the full Court of Appeal, but he's going to give it urgent attention. What chance do you give it?
I'd give it a very good chance, Andrew, and I suspect there'll be many more similar cases. We know that small business owners across Victoria and indeed across Australia have been absolutely smashed. They've been disproportionately hammered by the lockdown restrictions. We know that something like 35% of small business owners said that they're likely to incur significant financial risk over the next 3 months compared to less than 20% for large businesses. So this has really been a disproportionate impact on small business owners, but also on jobs, Andrew. It's not just those in small business, but the self-employed and those otherwise embedded in the private economy. We know that under Daniel Andrews' roadmap, 260,000 jobs are going to be destroyed on top of the already 430,000 jobs that have been lost under the lockdown measures, which is the equivalent to 20% of the workforce. So I think we will see a lot more of these kind of legal cases, Andrew.
Except Rita, anyone challenging the bans runs into the cult of Dan, the cult of Daniel Andrews. It's extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Banners on houses supporting him, a column in the Age today begging him, Dan, please get some sleep, stop your heroic labours for a minute.
That was vomit-inducing, that column in the Age. And remarkably, Chris Allman wrote a really insightful piece for the Sydney Morning Herald about Victoria's COVID response. The Age print edition didn't carry it, but they will publish love letters to Dan, just poorly written, turgid diatribes.
How dare you say that? It was written by a journalism lecturer.
Oh, my God. Well, then I pity her students, I've got to say that. But can I just say about this cafe owner, this woman who's really struggling to keep her business afloat. She's had some personal tragedy in her life. She's a single mother now and is doing her best. The Dan cult have gone after her business. They're leaving nasty online reviews, poor scores. I've had a look today. There's just a flood of reviews that are today to try to damage what's left of her business and her reputation. I think that is just so low and so nasty to be going after someone like that.
That is so mean. I hope good people, and there are more of them than there are of the trolls, find out her business and make sure you patronise it. Like I patronise the Deck restaurant here. Find a good business, spend more than you want, that you need, but just keep them in business too. We all got to help each other. Rita, that was a terrible story. Thank you so much, at least for raising attention to this injustice. Rita Panahi, Daniel Wild, thank you both so much for your time.